it's time for me to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Kim Haewon. At the end of the booklet you received, you will find her complete CV. I would just like to mention a few items out of that. Dr. Kim was educated at Seoul National University and University of Pennsylvania, where she received MA and PhD in History of Art. Her dissertation topic is Unnatural Mountains, Meaning of Buddhist Landscape in the Precious Rain Bianxiang in Mogao Cave. Bianxiang is a Chinese reading of a Buddhist term which we translate in English, transformed pictures. Her professional experiences are as follows. She's from 2004 to present. She served as Associate Curator at the National Museum of Korea, and she also served as Senior Researcher at the Institute of Humanities at Seoul National University. Before she came back to Korea, she served as Assistant Professor of Asian Art History at University of Georgia. Among her selected publications, I would like to introduce 4 items. A history of Central Asian collection at the National Museum of Korea, published in the International Journal of Korean Archaeology and Art. By the way, this journal is being published at the National Museum of Korea, and we try to publish 2 issues a year. And only the first year we did 1 issue, but after that we have been publishing 2 issues a year. And it's a very nice, informative journal on Korean art and archaeology. So I guess your embassy can subscribe to this journal. And the second one is on the problems of the scriptural sources of the Western Paradise, Bianxiang, in Dunhuang Mogao Cave, which is in China. Of course, many of you have visited there. Art History and Visual Culture. This is a journal published by the Art History Department at Seoul National University. The third one, the meaning of the non-religious figures in Vimalakirti Bianxiang in Dunhuang. The fourth one, creation of an ideal space, a study of architectural depictions in Western Paradise scenes in Dunhuang Mogao Caves in 2008. Maybe it's better for all of you to listen to her directly rather than my reading more of her publications. So I would like to welcome Dr. Kim Haewon. Please give her a big hand.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Well, we just start with the lecture then. Today I will speak about Buddhist paintings in Korea. Buddhist painting refers to paintings, as you know, that illustrate the teachings of Buddha, and these appear in various forms and styles. Today's talk will provide a short history of Korean Buddhist painting, focusing on major examples from the United Silla period to the Joseon period. When Buddhism was first transmitted to the Korean peninsula in the 4th century during the Three Kingdoms period, it was not merely a religious system, but a powerful civilizing force through which advanced culture was introduced. It was also a principal stimulus for artistic production. In addition to new architectural types such as shrines and pagodas, diverse forms of sculptural and painted images and crafts works were also created in Buddhist context. Texture records such as Hamguk-yusa, memorabilia of the Three Kingdoms, mention paintings of Bodhisattva and other deities that were installed in Buddhist temples during the Three Kingdoms period, as well as a legendary Goguryeo master named Damjin, who is known to have traveled to Japan and executed the murals of the famous Golden Hall at Horyuji Temple. Unfortunately, however, all of these works from Three Kingdoms period have been lost or destroyed. Today, the earliest surviving example of Korean Buddhist painting is from the unified Shilla period, which started in 676 and lasted until 935. And it consists of fragments. This is what you see now, the earliest example of Korean Buddhist painting. It consists of fragments of an Avatamsaka Sutra manuscript dated to 754 to 755. Avatamsaka Sutra is one of the most widely read and studied Mahayana Buddhist scriptures from this period. And this particular piece was made under the patronage of a monk named Yeongi in Hwangyongsa, one of the largest royal temples in Gyeongju, the capital city of Shilla. The frontispiece of the manuscript, which is painted in gold and silver on red mulberry paper, depicts a scene of a Buddhist assembly. In the reconstruction shown in the drawing on the right, Vairochana Buddha, he's the main Buddha in this sutra called Avatamsaka Sutra. Vairochana appears in the center against an architectural backdrop surrounded by bodhisattvas and heavenly beings. The image on the left side is the detail of the frontispiece. The well-proportioned soft bodies of the deities, intricate ornamental details, and iron wire lines, which refers to these tense and thin lines, are typical features of the so-called international style derived from the Tang Dynasty in China. This style was highly influential in East Asia during the 7th and 8th centuries. And a good example of this style can be seen in the mural that decorated Horyuji Temple in Japan, as you see on the right. Another notable aspect of the painting is asymmetrical composition. To the left of the Buddha, a single bodhisattva sits on a lion throne, while 4 bodhisattvas are on the right. This is quite unusual when compared with other Buddhist assembly scenes from the same period. As you can see in the example on the right, this is a painting from Dunhuang in China, dated to early 8th century. This unique composition demonstrates that Shilla painters did not simply borrow the iconography imported from the Tang, China, but were able to make creative modifications. More paintings remain from the Goryeo period. Wang Gun, the founder of the Goryeo dynasty, promoted Buddhism as the state religion, and lavish ceremonies and assemblies were held regularly by the state throughout the period. Historical records of the period also mention that private prayer halls called wondang were popular among royal family members and aristocrats. These public and private religious activities created a great demand for Buddhist images, and no expense was spared to produce the best work possible. In this context, some of the most elaborate paintings with the highest artistic achievements were created in this period. While Buddhist paintings were made in large number throughout the Goryeo period, which started in early 10th century and lasted until 14th century, most of the remaining examples are dated between the 13th and 14th centuries, so we only have late Goryeo examples. The earliest dated example are 11 scrolls of arahats. Arahats are the called worthy ones, and it refers to a Buddhist practitioner who has realized high stage of attainment. Individual characteristics of each arahat are emphasized in their representation in the paintings. So the images that you see in these slides are two paintings from the 11 scrolls that are dated as early 13th century. And these arahats often appear in groups of 16 or 500. So these paintings made in 1230s were originally part of a set of 500 paintings. Portable scroll paintings like these examples were quite popular during the Korea period. Approximately 160 pieces still exist today, but a large majority of them, around 120 pieces, is preserved in Japan. Some of these were gifts from the court of the Joseon dynasty. Others were pillaged. Only 15 examples can still be found in Korea, and the others are in Europe and North America. A majority of hanging scrolls feature themes related to Amitabha. Amitabha is the Buddha that resides in the Western paradise. Relevant scriptures teach that those who worship Amitabha Buddha can be reborn in this paradise, which is well displayed in several illustrations of the Contemplation Sutra of Amitabha. And one example is in this slide. As one of the three major scriptures of Amitabha worship, this sutra explains 16 contemplations. So in this drawing, it points out 16 different items that practitioners can think when they try to contemplate, focus their mind. In the painting's representation of the paradise, Amitabha appears in the center, so I will show you the details. This is Amitabha in the center. And various objects of contemplation, including sun. The red sun appears in the top center of this scene. And also you see jeweled trees that's emitting light. And we also have pavilions and lotus pond, which you see in the lower part of this slide. All these elements fill the rest of the painting. Various motifs and figures that appear in this palatial setting are vividly and meticulously depicted in minute detail, leading some scholars to believe that the paintings functioned as a kind of visual aid for the practice of contemplation. Other paintings focus more on Amitabha himself, like this one, showing him alone or in a triad with the Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, and Mahastama Prapta. This is the style of, let me show you the detail, which is, shows a lotus pedestal that is exquisitely done. While he often appears in a seated preaching position like you see in this example, there are some examples in which the Buddha stands and is slightly turned to one side. This pose is related to one of the most important roles of Amitabha Buddha, which is to personally guide the souls of the dead to his land of bliss. This painting, which is also in Japan, I mean, you might assume that most of the paintings are in Japan now, learning that 120 pieces are preserved there. This painting in Shoboji Temple in Japan shows the Buddha who is turned slightly to the right and makes a follow me gesture with his right hand. In terms of style, this painting demonstrates some of the distinctive features of Koryo paintings. In the early 20th century, in the early stage of scholarship on East Asian Buddhist paintings, Koryo paintings were relatively less known and were thus often mistaken as Chinese or Japanese. During the last several decades, however, their characteristics have been more clearly defined, and these include tendency to stillness, lack of movement, minimum background features, and little interest in spatial illusion and naturalistic description. These characteristics are more obvious when compared with Chinese and Japanese examples. The image on the left side depicts the same theme of Amitabha guiding the soul of the dead to his paradise. But it's a Chinese example from Southern Song dynasty. The shape of the mandala and clouds in the background indicates Buddha's movement toward the left side. The background features suggest spatial depth, which is absent in the Koryo example on the right side. The same theme is represented in a more dramatic way in a Japanese example, which you see in this slide. Amitabha appears with his followers, including bodhisattvas and heavenly musicians, and they are moving very fast toward the house on the lower right corner of the painting, where a person who is about to die appears. This is the detail of the Amitabha Buddha in this Japanese example. Coming back to the painting in Shoboji, the color palette of Koryo paintings is often limited to green, red, blue, and gold. And the ink outlines do not stand out as in some Chinese and Japanese examples. You can compare this with these paintings, which are, again, Southern Song examples, and show very clear ink outlines. And these are the details of the same painting. The gold round pattern, which you see on the right side, on the image on the right, with lotus that combines lotus and scroll, is also another unique feature of Koryo Buddhist paintings. The same theme is represented in a relatively more explanatory way in the 14th century painting housed in Lium's Samsung Museum of Art. A ray of light from Amitabha's forehead reaches the soul in the lower left corner of the painting, while Avalokiteshvara offers the soul a lotus throne. The nearest counterpart of this work is found not in China, but in a 12th century painting from the Western Xia kingdom, which controlled the northwestern frontier of China during this period. Another interesting aspect of this painting is that Mahastama Prapta, a bodhisattva that appears in Amitabha Triad, has been replaced by Kushtagarbha, the bodhisattva that you can see in this rectangular. This switch can be explained by the fact that Kushtagarbha was especially popular during the Koryo period. The bodhisattva Kushtagarbha played an important role in rescuing the souls of sentient beings from hell. He is most commonly represented as a monk with a shaved head, holding a mendicant's staff, and Chintamani, a wish-fulfilling jewel that he's holding on the right hand. In some compositions, he's accompanied by the 10 kings of hell, as you can see in this example, who govern the underworld. In Buddhism, to explain a little bit more about this 10 kings of hell, in Buddhism, it is told that when people die, their souls go to hell, where they meet the 10 kings, one after the other. 7 days after death, they pass before the first king, where they are detained, tortured, and judged according to their conduct during life. After meeting 7 kings in 7 weeks, they meet the 8th, 9th, and 10th kings for 100 days, 1 year, and 3 years, respectively. These 10 kings of hell, so these figures wearing this pink robes are the kings of the hell. They often appear separately, where each king dressed as a Chinese magistrate is engaged in reviewing the deeds of the dead, and the dead are being tortured and punished in various ways, as you can see in the lower part of these paintings. One bodhisattva that was even more popular than Krishnagarbha was Avalokiteshvara. He was the bodhisattva of compassion, one of the great bodhisattvas. Historical records of the time state that Avalokiteshvara paintings were used during various rituals seeking worldly benefits, such as wishes for longevity of the king, prevention of foreign invasions, and personal wishes including childbirth. The most popular type of Avalokiteshvara painting during this period is so-called water moon Avalokiteshvara. It's as you see in this slide. And around 40 examples of this type of painting remain. The earliest textual reference to this theme relates it to Zhou Fang, a famous Tang painter known for his sumptuous and sensuous depiction of women, as well as to a poem by Bai Ji, in which the image of the Bodhisattva appears as a reflection in a moonlit pond. The earliest example of water moon Avalokiteshvara paintings are found in murals and scroll paintings from Dunhuang in China. And I'm showing you a couple of examples, dated to 9th and 10th centuries. Scriptural basis for this theme is found in the chapter Entering the Dharma World in the Avatamsaka Sutra. Here, the boy named Sudana, he's depicted as this little boy in the lower left corner of the painting. This boy sets out on a journey in this sutra in search of the ultimate truth. And along the way, he encounters 53 sages, one of whom was Avalokiteshvara. According to the sutra's description, the Bodhisattva was sitting on a diamond seed amid fragrant grass growing in the midst of water at his island abode, called Mount Pottalaka. This scene is in accordance with the painting's representation of a rocky outcrop covered with grass and surrounded by water. Sudana is depicted as a small boy standing in the lower left corner of the painting, looking up at the massive image of Bodhisattva. Another texture source for the painting is the local version of this story preserved in Samguknyusa. In this account, Eisang, an eminent Shilla monk and founder of Haewon school. Haewon school is one of the Buddhist schools based on the ideas expounded in Avatamsaka Sutra. He had a miraculous encounter with Avalokiteshvara and Naksan on the east coast of the Korean peninsula, wherein the Bodhisattva told Eisang to build a temple at a spot where a pair of bamboo grew. So this is reflected in the painting as well. This is quite dark, but on this upper part of the painting, you can see the leaves of bamboo trees. The account goes on to say that the image of Avalokiteshvara, that Eisang enshrined in the temple, had Chintamani, the wish-fulfilling jewel, and also prayer beads. So most of the water moon Avalokiteshvara painting during the Koryo period holds this beads, prayer beads, on his right hand, in his right hand. What other notable features of Koryo examples of the type of this theme include the intricate textile patterns, the silky gauze-like veil, and the highlights on the rocks, which are not detailed in the texture sources, but nevertheless demonstrate the virtuosity of the painting workshop. The painting in Kagami Jinja in Japan is presumably one of the most elaborate examples of water moon Avalokiteshvara painting. Although part of the painting has been lost, its sheer size, its height is 419 centimeters, and the lavishly adorned image of the Bodhisattva indicate the taste of its prestigious patron, Lady Kim, who was a concubine of both King Chungnyeol and his brother who succeeded him as King Chungsan. I will show you the detail of the painting in Kagami Jinja and two more images of water moon Avalokiteshvara. This one in Leum Museum shows the same composition, but you can see that there is slight variations in facial features, patterns of garments, and shape of rocks. The bamboos are more clearly seen in this example. And another exquisite example is in Senshoji Temple in Japan. It has a different composition in which the Bodhisattva appears standing in a mandala that looks like a large teardrop. This piece is also unusual in that its painter is known, whose name, Haewon, is written in the corner of the painting. The highlights on the face, refined headdress and garments, executed in extremely thin lines and subtle movement, all show the highest artistic achievement of the period. So more details of this Bodhisattva and Sudana, the boy who's seeking the truth. Another type of painting that features a very meticulous style of depiction is sutra illuminations. At first, sutra copying was an essential way to transmit the Buddha's teaching. Even with the advance of printing technology, sutra copying was still performed as a way for Buddhist followers to accumulate merits. And they began making great efforts to create lavish works. Major examples of Koryo Illumination Sutra manuscript are rendered in gold. Here you see example done in silver on indigo blue paper. This is example of a manuscript written in gold on the same indigo paper. And many of these exorbitant works are believed to have been produced at Royal Scriptorium. Two particular important scriptoriums, Haewon, it can be translated as Scriptorium of Silver Letters, and Haewon, Scriptorium of Gold Letters, were established during King Chungnyeol's reign during the late 13th century. The most popular sutra for copying was the Lotus Sutra, the most widely read Mahayana sutra in East Asia. The most common type of sutra manuscript consists of 7 books, each of which is in rectangular, this accordion format. And each book has a frontispiece that shows Shakyamuni preaching on the right, and small narratives scenes on the left side of the painting. The basic composition and format of Koryo manuscript illumination was based on Song and Yuan prints, one of which you see on the bottom of this slide. But Korean examples, they have their own distinctive features, such as dense ornamentation of pictorial ground and the abstract spiral design of the garments. I always feel dizzy when I see this detail of the illumination. Other than the Lotus Sutra, these are the more details. And this is another example that illustrates a scene in Avatamsaka Sutra. So other than the Lotus Sutra, Avatamsaka Sutra was most popularly copied. However, rather than copying the entire sutra, like in the case of Lotus Sutra, the chapter called The Wishful Conduct of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra was selected, which deals with the rebirth in the lotus world and repentance of wrongdoings. The manuscript completed in 1334 under the commission of An Se-han has a beautiful illumination in which the Bodhisattva preaches in front of, Samantabhadra preaches in front of other Bodhisattvas. So I'll move on to Joseon period now. With the beginning of Joseon dynasty, the environment for Buddhists changed completely from the previous Korea period. The new ruling class promoted Neo-Confucianism as the state ideology and persecuted Buddhism, which was the state religion of the Goryeo dynasty. This new policy prevented the kings and elite class from officially supporting Buddhism. Yet the religion continued to serve people's private needs related to sickness, death, and loss of family members. Even kings such as Taejo and Sejong who created Korean alphabet, Hangul, are known to have been devout Buddhists. And most rulers did not interfere with Buddhist activities sponsored by the family members of the royal family. So this is a book published in 1447 under the commission of King Sejong to honor the soul of Queen who died in the previous year. It is also worth noting that Buddhism shared a common ground with Confucianism in the practice of filial piety and ancestor worship. Buddhist scriptures such as repaying the grace of parents were widely read, and a wide range of people continued to practice Buddhist rites for deceased parents. As to royal patronage during the reign of Myeongjong, Queen Dowager Munjong was known to have been a great supporter of Buddhism. She spearheaded a major artistic project to create a set of 400 paintings for a large-scale Buddhist ritual held in 1565 at a temple called Haewon. These included paintings of Shakyamuni, one of which you see on the left side of this slide, and Maitreya by Sagyaguru, which is the healing Buddha, and Amitabha triads, executed either in full color, as you see on the left side, or in gold outline, as you see on the right. Only 7 of these scrolls survive, and they are scattered in different collections in North America, Korea, and Japan. According to the inscription, the paintings were created for the peace of Crown Prince Sunhwae in his afterlife, the well-being of the king, and removal of various obstacles from the country. Another painting commissioned by the Empress Dowager is an Ara painting done in 15 1952, currently housed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Compared with the art paintings of the Korea period, this painting appears more refined in the depiction of the figure and background features, such as rocks and pine trees. As we have just seen in the paintings commissioned by Queen Dowager Munjong, one of the most elaborate type of Buddhist painting from the early Joseon period is the painting rendered exclusively in gold lines. Here you see another example of the same type, which is in Germany. The style is reminiscent of the sutra illuminations of the previous period, which continued to be made in the early Joseon period. However, these sutra illuminations appeared to be too extravagant for the new taste of Confucian society, which cherished such virtues as frugality and restraint. An excellent example showing of this taste is the white porcelain that you see on the right side, produced throughout the Joseon period. Under these circumstances, such sutra manuscript gradually disappeared, and instead the style was adopted in a few scroll paintings. In the 16th century, the silk and gold pigments of the paintings were replaced by hemp and white pigment. So the paintings I have shown you so far, they are all rendered on silk. Now, in early Joseon dynasty, they started to use cheaper material, which is hemp. And these paintings are done on hemp, and they used white pigment, as you see on these examples. And it demonstrates a further shift in the taste. Starting in the 16th century, hemp became the preferred material for Buddhist paintings. Hemp was more affordable than silk, so it was widely utilized for paintings commissioned by the lower classes. On these paintings, the colors are usually bright, as seen in this work done in 1586, Krishnagarbha and 10 Kings of Hell. In addition to color palette, the style of these paintings is also quite different from similarly themed Goryeo paintings. So we can compare this with the Goryeo example on the right side. Compared with the celestial and solemn image of the deities in Goryeo paintings, Bodhisattva, 10 kings, and other figures in this Joseon painting appear disproportioned, individualized, and even humorous. So I will show you the details where you can see the faces of these figures. These paintings were often commissioned by religious communities or groups, and the long inscription lists the names of the commissioners and donated items. So usually the inscription appears in the bottom. So in this case, here are this is the inscription. As for the latter part of the Joseon period, a relatively large number of paintings are preserved in their original architectural context. During this period, many temples were rebuilt after the massive destruction that occurred during Japanese invasions in the year of Imjin and the Chinese invasion in the year of Pyeongja. The newly built main halls tend to have high ceilings and expanded interiors. As in the Shakyamuni Hall in Jikjisa Temple, a wide altar is placed in the center of the hall for the worship of the three Buddhas of past, present, and future. Behind each Buddha statue is installed a large painting of the Buddha with his entourage. In the 18th and 19th centuries, small halls and shrines were added to many existing temple complexes, and these were also decorated with new paintings. For instance, a painting in Kimyongsa dated to 1822 was made for a small shrine called Hwajang-am. In this case, the the same theme of the three Buddhas is compressed into one scene, with Buddhas occupying most of the surface. Several new types of paintings emerged in late Joseon period, one of which was the nectar ritual painting. It was hung during various rituals that were held for the salvation of the soul of the deceased and for their rebirth in Buddhist paradise. Such rituals included the rites of the 49 days, the festival of hungry ghosts, and deliverance of creatures of water and land. These paintings usually had three-part compositions. The upper part that you see in this painting often shows 7 Buddhas and 3 Bodhisattvas who guide the souls to the paradise. The middle section is centered around the hungry ghosts. So these are the hungry ghosts, which represent wandering soul that remain in purgatorial realm of existence for 49 days after their death, until their path for rebirth is determined. Next to hungry ghost is a large altar filled with all kinds of food offerings for the soul. And to the left and right of this hungry ghost, some monks are performing a ceremony along with musicians and dancers. The lower part of the painting consists of a number of small scenes of various incidents that cause people death in the secular world. So this is the detail of this painting showing hungry ghosts and the food prepared for the soul. And this is another example of nectar ritual painting dated to 18th century. So the scenes are usually divided into 3, as you can see in this drawing on the right. And the upper part, we see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas surrounded by colorful clouds. And in the middle appears hungry ghosts that represent the soul of the dead. And the lower part, we see a number of scenes that shows people dying in different circumstances. The style of this nectar ritual painting is distinctively Korean, not only for its amalgamation of diverse themes and elements, but also for the ways that the figures and their activities are represented. The figures that we see in this painting are dressed in Joseon garments instead of Chinese garments that we often see in Buddhist paintings of this period. And the scenes are similar, some of the scenes are similar to genre paintings that flourished during this period. So I'm showing you detail of nectar ritual painting with Kim Hong-do's genre painting that shows the scene with blacksmiths. Another intriguing new type of Buddhist painting in the late Joseon period is called Kwaebul, a large hanging scroll with a height of more than 10 meters. These were usually created for outdoor ceremonies in order to lead the soul of the deceased to rebirth in paradise. On the day of the ceremony, this large painting was hung in front of the main hall of the temple. Various kinds of food were prepared and offered to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, monks, and spirits, while colorful musical compositions and dances were performed. It is known that the ceremonies accommodating a large number of people were increasingly held after the Japanese and Chinese invasions to console those who had died during the war. Earlier examples of Kwaebul have compositions that are similar to the paintings installed inside the halls and shrines. The image on the right side, this black and white image, shows that they used 24 pieces of hemp in order to make this one large scene. So the vertical lines show how they can be separated. Going back to the composition, so the painting in Hwaeomsa, this large Buddhist painting in Hwaeomsa made in 1653 is an example that portrays a typical preaching scene, which is found in most of the paintings that are installed inside halls and shrines, as you see on the right side. From the 17th century, the subject and style were adjusted according to the scale and function of the painting. The deities were now shown to be standing, and their number decreased. So this change can be seen on the painting, in the painting on the right side, which is from Cheonggoksa, another temple, and this is dated to 1722. So another example that you see on the right side is from Cheonensa, and you can see many details have been omitted in this painting. Most of the main Buddhas that appear in these large Buddhist scrolls are Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha of our time. And in some paintings, he appears holding in these examples. This type incorporates one of the famous stories in which Kashyapa, one of Buddha's best disciples, smiled as a response when Shakyamuni held up a lotus flower. This story became especially favored by Zen Buddhists who emphasize that the Buddha's Dharma, Buddha's teaching, is beyond words and cannot be conveyed by Buddhist scriptures and doctrines. So, so this is the last slide of my lecture. And before I finish, I would like to add that many Korean Buddhist paintings are displayed in museums, not only in Korea, but also in other countries, in North America, Europe, and Japan. And that I wish you to have a chance to appreciate them in person in the future. Thank you very much.